Okay, this video is going to cover section 2.3. Problem solving in math you usually end up seeing as word problems, but they're just skills that help you understand real life situations. The steps that help you go through those are to read your word problem carefully and then assign variables. By doing that, you know from the start what you're calling each letter, X, Y, A, B, all of that. Once you've assigned your variables, you're going to use the wording of the problem to write your equations, then solve them and check your answer. Now, this table has some words to help you translate. When you see things like plus, sum, increase, those are all telling you to add. Or less than, fewer, those are telling you to subtract. Per is divide. Is tells you equals. All of that wording helps you to write the equations from the word problem. So let's try one. 3 times a number. So, wow. 3 times a number minus 6 is equal to 18. So each of those colors is a different part. 3 would obviously be the number 3. Times a number tells us we're multiplying, and a number, we don't know what that is. So it's like times x. Minus 6 is equal to 18. So just using those words and looking for where they match up in this chart, we now have an equation. 3x minus 6 equals 18. Now we can work backwards to solve it. So since it's minus 6 in the equation, we're going to add 6 to both sides. We get 3x equals 24. Then to undo the multiplying, we divide by 3. So x equals 8. There you go. Let's try another one. The sum of half a number and 5 is 0. So sum is telling us that we're adding. Half of a number, of tells us multiplying. So that's something else we could have here. If you see the word of, it's multiply. So half of a number and 5, so those are the two things we're summing, is 0. Now we can solve it just like I did the other one. We're going to subtract 5 from both sides. So 1/2 x equals negative 5. Just going to rewrite it over here. Then we're going to divide by 1/2 to get rid of that, to get the x alone. So negative 5 divided by 1/2. When you divide by fractions, you end up multiplying by the reciprocal. So you take that second fraction and you flip, and then negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. So that is our value. Number 3, 16 is 4 less than twice a number. So 16 is equals 4 less than, so that means we're going to do something and then take away 4, twice a number. So that's 2 times x. Twice is a way to say 2 times. Now to solve this, we would add 4 to both sides, giving us 20 equals 2x. Then we would divide by 2 to get the x alone, and x equals 10. So those are just some quick examples of how we can do the different word problems. Now we're going to go over a couple word problems that you'll see. The sum of 3 consecutive numbers is 81. So sum tells us addition. Consecutive means in a row, like 3, 4, 5, 17, 18, 19. So step 1 is to make sense of it. We're trying to find 3 numbers that add together to get 81 and assign our variables. So let's call x the smallest number. So if x were 3, how do I get from 3 to 4? Well, I add 1. So x plus 1 would be the middle number. And then how would I get from x to 5? Well, we would add 2. So x plus 2 is going to be our largest number. Now that we know what our 3 numbers will be, we can write an equation. So sum tells us add. So x plus 1 plus x plus 2 equals 81. Now we solve that. So we just combine like terms. Here we have 3 x's. Then we're going to add 1 plus 2 is 3 to get 81. Solve that. So subtract 3 from both sides, and we get 3x equals 78. Then we're going to divide by 3 to get the x alone, and 78 divided by 3 is 26. So this tells us our smallest number is 26, meaning 26, 27, and 28 are our numbers. The way to check that is to add them together. 26 plus 27 plus 28. If I add those together, I get 81, so it works. Another word problem you're going to see are distance word problems. Distance equals rate times time. Sometimes you'll hear me refer to this as the DIRT equation because it looks kind of like the word dirt. And it's just saying if I multiply the speed I'm going by the time I'm going that speed, I get the distance. So a person drives for 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's their time. And if we turn 30 minutes into an hour, it's half an hour. And half is 0.5. So their time is 2.5 hours. They have a constant speed and they go 180 miles. So our distance is 180 miles. Find the speed. So now we write our equation. Distance equals rate times time. 180 equals rate times the 2.5 hours. To undo that multiplication, we divide. And 180 divided by 2.5 is 72. So this person went 72 miles per hour. How can I check that? Well, I can multiply the time times the speed, and I would end up with 180 miles. Another way you might see this is like this next problem where we're combining two different speeds over 2 periods of time to get a total distance. So that's going to change the equation by saying, hey, distance 1 plus distance 2 equals our total distance. Now, distance 1 is the first rate times the first time, and distance 2 is the second rate times the second time. And if I put those together, I end up with my total distance. Now let's read the problem and see what we can fill in. An athlete jogs at 2 speeds, covering a distance of 7 miles in 3/4 of an hour. If he runs 1/4 hour at 8 miles per hour, find the second speed. So, do we know the first speed? Yes, the first speed is 8 miles an hour. So I'm going to put 8 there. The first time is 1/4 of an hour. So 1/4. Do we know the second speed? No, that's what we're looking for. Do we know the second time? Now, technically, it's not listed, but if we know the total time is 3/4 and we've already run 1/4, if I subtract those, I get 2/4, which is the same as 1/2. So we know the second time is 1/2. And then our total distance is 7 miles. So I can plug that in. Now that I have an equation, I can solve it. So 8 times 1/4 is 2. 1/2 times r is still 1/2 times r. And then we have the 7 over here. So if I were to solve that, I would subtract 2 from both sides. So I would get 1/2 r2 equals 7 minus 2 is 5. Divide both sides by 1/2. And I end up with r is 10 miles per hour. How can I check that? Well, I can plug it into a calculator. So we said the first speed was 1/4 hour and 8 miles an hour. So the first distance they went was 2 miles. Then we're saying for half an hour, they went 10 miles per hour. That gives us 5 miles. If I put those two together, I get the total 7, so we know it works. Another type of problem you're going to see is a mixture problem. I don't know what's going on with this. Where we're mixing two different things together to get a solution, and we're trying to figure out how much to do that to get the solution we want. So this equation, amount A times percent A plus amount B times percent B equals amount A plus B times total percent. You'll have that equation on your note sheet. I'm just going to show you how to use it. So let's read and make sense. A solution contains 4% salt, how much pure water should be added to 30 ounces of the solution to dilute it to a 1.5% solution. So let's call A our solution, and we'll call B, or W even, our water. Let's call W our water. So A is solution, water is B, so you can put W or B. It's up to you. I'm fighting with this. We'll say B. Okay, so the amount of water that we start with is, or no, the amount of A. A is our solution. We start with 30 ounces of our solution. So amount A is 30 ounces. Percent of our solution is 4%. So we would multiply that as 0.04. Now we have our first part of the parentheses. Now let's do amount B. How much water? Well, we don't know, so that's where we're going to put our X. We don't know how much water. And then what percent is water? Well, if it's pure water, there's no salt, so it would be 0%. Then we go over to our amount A plus amount B. Well, if our amount A was 30 and our amount B was B, combining those would be 30 plus B. And then the total percent would be what we want it to be. So 1.5%, move the decimal point twice, we get 0.015. 0.015%. Now we just solve for B. So if I were to multiply 30 times 0.04, I get 1.2. B times 0 is 0. Here I would distribute. So 30 times 0.015 gives us 0.45. And 0.015 times B is 0.015B. Now I subtract the 0.45 from both sides. And I get 0.75 equals 0.015B. Divide both sides by 0.015. And I get 50. So if B is the amount of water, that means we want to add 50 ounces to our solution to reduce that concentration of the solution. When we talk about money, we're doing the same thing. If we're taking out loans at 5% and loans at 7%, it's the same process. We're saying principal or interest is the principal, how much you put in, times the rate, times the time. So the money you put in times the percent you get times the amount of time it's in there. And because now we're only talking about 1 year, we can ignore the time because it's 1. So as far as we are concerned, we're doing interest equals percent times the rate. Nope. Principal, the amount of money times the rate. And then we're going to combine it kind of like we did with the distance problem up here, this one right here. And we're going to do it like the mixture problem. We're combining 2 different loans. So let's see how we do. A student takes out a loan for a limited amount of time, a limited amount of money at 5% interest, and then must pay 7% for any additional money. If they borrow $2,000 more at 7% than 5%, then the total interest is $440. How much did they borrow at each? So let's assign our variables. Let's say X is the 5% loan money. So the X is how much they took out at 5%. If 7% is 2,000 more than that, then the X plus 2,000 is the 7% loan money. So whatever they took out plus 2,000 more. Now let's find the interest for each. So principal times rate. So the 5% principal is X. So that would be X times 5% or 0.05. The other loan, our principal is X plus 2,000. And that rate was 0.07. So this gives us the interest on the 5% loan and the interest on the 7% loan. And if we add those together, we get our total interest of $440. Now we can solve for X. If I combine 0.05 times X and get 0.05X, If I distribute here, I get 0.07x plus, I put an extra 0 there, 0.07x plus 0.07 times 2,000 is 140 equals 440. Combine like terms, and I get 0.12x plus 140 equals 440. I'm going to subtract 140 from both sides. So I get 0.12x equals 300. I'm going to divide by 0.12, and I get x equals 2,500. Up here, we said x was our 5% loan. So at 5%, we invested or borrowed $2,500. If the 7% loan is 2,000 more than that, we would add 2,000, and for the 7% loan, we would get 4,500. How can I check that? Well, we plug it in with our percents and see. So 5% times 2,500 plus 7% times 4,500 gives us 440. So the calculator shows us that that matches, so these are correct. That is 2.6. Let me know if you have any questions.